Welcome to the channel. Today, we delve into a deeply unsettling case from Canada that left investigators and the community in shock. The tragic story of Nicole Portiello. Often, the most important turns in a case don't come from big revelations. They come from small details that were easy to overlook at first. Something left behind at a scene, a fingerprint that didn't seem relevant, a comment someone made in passing. When those details are revisited, they can change how everything else is understood and force investigators to rethink what they thought they knew. Good investigators are trained to notice what isn't obvious. They work their way through half-truths, conflicting accounts, and information that doesn't quite add up, knowing that the truth is rarely handed to them all at once. According to Burnaby police, an incident involving a charcoal gray 2017 Kia Sorento happened around 1 p.m. on November 16th in the 8000 block of Barnett Highway. When police and firefighters arrived, their sirens cut through the quiet. Under the flashing lights, the damaged SUV came into clearer view. It had slammed into a lamppost, and a man was trapped inside, seriously injured. First responders quickly secured the area and began working together. Police, paramedics, fire crews moving with practiced coordination. Time mattered. Every delay increased the risk. Their focus was clear, and their movements were deliberate, shaped by years of training. Firefighters brought in hydraulic tutting tools to peel back the crushed metal. The sound was harsh, but the team stayed calm and controlled as they worked. Inside the vehicle, medics stayed close to the victim, ready to step in the moment it was safe to remove him. After several long minutes, the rescue commander gave the go-ahead. The man was carefully pulled from the wreckage and transferred to the medical team. From start to finish, the response ran on coordination and trust, with each person doing their part to give the victim the best chance possible. Medics moved in right away, giving first aid and closely watching his condition as they worked to stabilize him. Once they were confident he was steady, they placed him carefully onto a stretcher and loaded him into the waiting ambulance. Plans were already in place to get him to the nearest hospital for further treatment. The injured man was identified as Jan Popel. At the hospital, doctors ran a full set of tests to make sure there were no internal injuries or other issues that hadn't shown up right away. He had a few bruises and a mild concussion, but nothing life-threatening. His condition stayed stable, and he was kept under observation as a precaution. Jan worked as a real estate agent and, according to reports, had been dealing with substance abuse. His relationship with Nicole didn't start out troubled. At first, it felt intense and deeply connected. They talked for hours, shared plans, and imagined a future together. Often, the most important turns in a case don't come from big revelations. They come from small details that were easy to overlook at first. Something left behind at a scene, a fingerprint that didn't seem relevant, a comment someone made in passing. When those details are revisited, they can change how everything else is understood and force investigators to rethink what they thought they knew. Good investigators are trained to notice what isn't obvious. They work their way through half-truths, conflicting accounts, and information that doesn't quite add up, knowing that the truth is rarely handed to them all at once. According to Burnaby police, an incident involving a charcoal gray 2017 Kia Sorento happened around 1 p.m. on November 16th in the 8000 block of Barnett Highway. When police and firefighters arrived, their sirens cut through the quiet. Under the flashing lights, the damaged SUV came into clearer view. It had slammed into a lamppost, and a man was trapped inside, seriously injured. First responders quickly secured the area and began working together. Police, paramedics, fire crews moving with practiced coordination. Time mattered. Every delay increased the risk. Their focus was clear, and their movements were deliberate, shaped by years of training. Firefighters brought in hydraulic tutting tools to peel back the crushed metal. The sound was harsh, but the team stayed calm and controlled as they worked. Inside the vehicle, medics stayed close to the victim, ready to step in the moment it was safe to remove him. After several long minutes, the rescue commander gave the go-ahead. The man was carefully pulled from the wreckage and transferred to the medical team. From start to finish, the response ran on coordination and trust, with each person doing their part to give the victim the best chance possible. Medics moved in right away, giving first aid and closely watching his condition as they worked to stabilize him. Once they were confident he was steady, they placed him carefully onto a stretcher and loaded him into the waiting ambulance. Plans were already in place to get him to the nearest hospital for further treatment. The injured man was identified as Jan Popel. At the hospital, doctors ran a full set of tests to make sure there were no internal injuries or other issues that hadn't shown up right away. He had a few bruises and a mild concussion, but nothing life-threatening. His condition stayed stable, and he was kept under observation as a precaution. Jan worked as a real estate agent and, according to reports, had been dealing with substance abuse. His relationship with Nicole didn't start out troubled. At first, it felt intense and deeply connected. They talked for hours, shared plans, and imagined a future together. In those early days, being together felt easy. Arguments were rare, and the relationship seemed to bring out the best in both of them. Over time, though, Nicole began to see changes in Jan that worried her. What once looked like concern slowly shifted into control. He started framing his behavior as protection, saying he was just trying to keep her safe. But that protection soon extended to cutting her off from friends and family. He checked her phone. He monitored her social media. His jealousy and anger became harder to hide. Arguments became more frequent, and each one seemed to tighten his grip. Nicole found herself stuck in a pattern that was emotionally draining and hard to break away from. On one occasion, he shoved her hard enough to cause pain, crossing a line that couldn't be ignored. Even then, Nicole stayed. After nearly 7 years together, she held on to the promises he kept making that he would change, that he would be the partner he used to be. She wanted to believe him. And even though part of her understood deep down that he might never truly change, Nicole didn't leave. His promises kept Nicole holding on. They broke up more than once, and each time she gave him another chance. Then, just 9 days before the crash, they ended things again. This time, Nicole believed it was really over. Jan didn't see it that way. He refused to accept the breakup and wasn't ready to let her go. His anger and jealousy started to spill over. He began parking outside Nicole's home and shared inappropriate photos of her, actions that only escalated the situation. After Jan was removed from the vehicle, police turned their attention to the scene itself. They spoke with witnesses and carefully examined the crash site, documenting everything they could. Their goal was to understand exactly what had happened and what caused the SUV to hit the lamppost. As with any serious incident, they continued their work with the responsibility of public safety in mind. Once firefighters finished their role and began packing up to return to base, something unexpected happened. One officer noticed something in the distance. About 30 feet from the vehicle, a woman was lying in a ditch. She was unconscious but still breathing. It was Nicole. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors worked to save her. Despite their efforts, she didn't survive. In a later statement, police confirmed that the 34-year-old mother and educational assistant who died after the SUV crash in Burnaby had injuries that showed she had been assaulted. While the man involved was expected to recover, Nicole's injuries told a very different story. Within hours of her death, her body was taken to the forensic lab for an autopsy. An experienced medical examiner conducted a detailed examination, carefully documenting each wound. Some wounds were deep and showed signs of significant force. Others were more shallow, suggesting a struggle. In total, the examiner counted 47 stab wounds. Evidence indicated that 2 different knives had been used. The examiner also looked for details that could explain how the attack unfolded. Notably, there were no defensive wounds on Nicole's hands, suggesting the attack may have happened suddenly or that she never had a chance to protect herself. The examiner understood how important his findings were. What he documented could help identify who was responsible and moved the case forward. Once the autopsy was finished, his observations were organized into an official report. It wasn't just paperwork. It became a key part of the investigation, shaping the decisions law enforcement would make next. While that work continued, Nicole's family, friends, and coworkers were left trying to process a loss that felt overwhelming. For the people who loved her, everything seemed to stop. What remained were memories, her smile, her energy, and the plans she had talked about for the future. Her family struggled with the reality that they would never again hug her, hear her laugh, or share new moments together as mother, daughter, and sister. Her friends felt the loss just as deeply. Nicole had been someone they confided in, someone who knew their fears and hopes. They kept thinking about how hard she had worked to put her life back together, to find peace and happiness, and to start fresh. At work, her absence was impossible to miss. Coworkers began to realize how much she had shaped the environment around her. She had encouraged others, lifted people up, and brought a steady sense of optimism into the space. Without her, the workplace felt different. Her death was a painful reminder of how quickly life can change and how important it is to treat one another with care. The holidays were especially hard. Nicole's brother, Carmine Portiello, later shared that he wasn't sure he would ever get used to life without her. When we sit down for a family meal, her empty chair is impossible to ignore. He said she should be there, but she isn't. Just 13 days after Nicole's death, Jan Popel was taken into custody. On November 29, 2018, police made a public appeal for information related to a car crash that had happened less than 2 weeks earlier. Nicole Portiello had been involved in what was first described as a single-vehicle accident, but the nature of her injuries raised serious concerns. She later died at the hospital, and investigators were now looking at the case in a very different light. Authorities later announced that 31-year-old Jan Popel had been arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection with Nicole Portiello's death. A police spokesperson confirmed that he was scheduled to appear before a judge later that same day. Officials also made it clear that this was an isolated incident. Everyone involved knew each other and there was no ongoing risk to the public. Investigators said the charge was the result of extensive work behind the scenes. Evidence had been carefully collected, reviewed, and secured over days of long hours. According to police, reaching this point took persistence and close attention to detail. They also acknowledged the deep grief being felt by Nicole's family, friends, and the many people whose lives she had touched. Our hope is that we've been able to give Nicole's family some answers to the questions they've been carrying, a spokesperson said. But there's always a chance that someone knows something and hasn't come forward yet. That's why we're speaking today. If you have information, whether you've just realized its importance or you've been hesitant to share it, we want to hear from you. Rebuilding the timeline of events became a key part of understanding what happened to Nicole. Investigators needed to lay everything out clearly: what happened, when it happened, and how the pieces fit together. As they did that, gaps and contradictions began to appear in Jan's account, helping investigators understand his actions in the hours leading up to her death. To create that timeline, police reviewed surveillance footage, examined phone records, and analyzed text messages exchanged between Nicole and Jan. Those details helped paint a clearer picture of Nicole's movements, her conversations, and what was happening around her at the time. That timeline also became central to the case against Jan. Without a clear, well-documented sequence of events, proving what happened in court would have been far more difficult. As previously noted, Nicole and Jan had been in an on-and-off relationship for 7 years, marked by repeated breakups and reconciliations. The events that led to Nicole's death began 9 days before the crash. Nicole had ended her relationship with Jan after she started talking to another man. According to investigators, that decision triggered intense jealousy in Jan. On the evening of November 16th, while Nicole's son was at hockey practice, Jan picked her up in a rental vehicle. At some point during the drive, an argument broke out and escalated. Jan pulled out 2 kitchen knives and attacked Nicole as she sat in the passenger seat, stabbing her multiple times. Instead of calling for help, Jan took off his blood-stained jacket, picked up his phone, and began recording a video. In the footage, Nicole can be heard telling him she loved him as she struggled to stay alive. Jan responded without compassion, saying she had been stabbed because he couldn't accept her being with someone else. There was no apology, no sign of regret. After that, Jan drove home and left Nicole in the car, still alive, while he went inside. He sent emails, including one resigning from his job. For the next 2 hours, Nicole remained in the vehicle while Jan went about personal tasks, checking his email, paying bills, and even ordering a new television and dishwasher online. When he eventually returned to the car, he realized Nicole was still alive. Investigators believe he then tried to make her injuries look like the result of an accident. He got back into the vehicle, sped up, and crashed into a streetlight. Nicole was thrown from the car on impact because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Based on the evidence, Jan Popel was charged with second-degree murder. For Nicole's family and friends, the trial brought another painful chapter. Proceedings began in 2020 and lasted several months. One of the most difficult moments came when prosecutors introduced the video Jan had recorded after the stabbing. Before it was played, the judge warned the courtroom that the footage was graphic and told anyone who felt unable to watch that they could step outside. In the 1-minute video, Nicole is seen struggling to breathe while Jan sits beside her, blaming her for what happened. Rather than asking for help, he accused her of treating him badly over the years. At one point, he angrily said, "You just took," from the video played in court. Jan remained seated in the prisoner's box, his head lowered while the room listened in silence. Nicole's father, Jan Portiello, couldn't stay in the courtroom while the video played. Visibly shaken, he stepped outside. Her brother, Carmine Portiello, stood up and demanded that Jan lift his head and look at what he had done. Seeing how overwhelming the moment had become, the judge called a 15-minute recess. When court resumed, several people, including Joe and Carmine, delivered victim impact statements. Joe described Nicole as kind, caring, and the emotional center of their family. Speaking directly to Jan, he said, "You've destroyed our family," adding that forgiveness was impossible after what he had done. Carmine spoke about how the loss had changed him, saying he felt hollowed out, overwhelmed by anger toward the man responsible for his sister's death. Crown prosecutor Jacqueline Madden also read statements from other victims, including Nicole's young son. In his words, losing his mother felt like losing a piece of his heart. She wasn't just his parent, she was his best friend. In her remarks, the judge described Jan Popel's actions as heartless, violent, and deeply selfish. Though she noted that he had expressed some level of remorse, Nicole's father strongly disagreed. Speaking outside the courtroom, Joe said the idea made him sick. If he truly felt remorse, he said, we would have seen it, at least a tear. Instead, he walked in like he was heading out to lunch. After pleading guilty to second-degree murder, Popel was sentenced to life in prison. The remaining issue was parole eligibility. His defense lawyer argued for a minimum of 10 years. While prosecutors asked for at least 15, Nicole's family found neither option acceptable. They pointed to Popel's long history of controlling and aggressive behavior and felt the sentence didn't reflect the seriousness of what he had done. Nicole's cousin, Gina Uliano, said she believed the case should have resulted in a first-degree murder conviction, which would have meant no chance of parole for 25 years. I don't think any number of years is truly enough, Uliano said, but if 25 is the maximum, then that's what he should receive. She also spoke about how difficult it was to accept that someone under 40 could potentially be released in their 50s. That's just not acceptable, she said. In the week leading up to sentencing, Nicole's family and friends turned to social media to share how deeply her death had affected them. They spoke openly about their grief and questioned whether the punishment would ever truly reflect the loss they were living with every day. We can't let people like this walk freely in our communities, Uliano said. We can't set a precedent where such a violent act gets a lenient sentence and encourages others to think they can do the same. In court, Popel addressed Nicole's family directly, offering an apology. I've waited a long time for the chance to say how sorry I am, he told them. In April 2021, Jan Popel was sentenced to life in prison. He will be eligible to apply for parole after serving 15 years. Nicole's family said the sentence didn't go far enough. There's no justice in this country, they told reporters outside the courthouse. In 15 years, he could be back on the streets, Gina Uliano added. Is that really the message we want to send to the rest of society? If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant.